Welcome to Rotoworld Football Show on the NBC NFL on NBC YouTube channel. My name is Pat Kerrane, and I am joined by Kyle Dvorchak. Kyle, how's it going?
Not bad. I think through the internet, Pat got me sick on like Monday or Tuesday, so I'm okay though.
Sorry about that, bud.
Look, I've been more sick other times this year already, so I'll be fine. I'm a big boy.
Yeah, so if you guys are not familiar with this show, this is a combo show. We are going to be doing start-sit questions. And so get those in the chat now. But we're not going to be answering those questions until about 15, 20 minutes from now. We'll go through those for about 15 minutes, and then we'll go back to the other part of this combo show, which is a DFS discussion that Kyle and I are going to be doing. So you can throw in your questions, and then at the very end of the show, we'll do another 10 minutes or so of questions. So throw those in now because I'll kind of start at the beginning once we start going through the questions. But Kyle, let's kick things off with the DFS discussion. And, we tend to talk about the big games. So it would be weird if we didn't start here with Bills Chiefs.
Yeah, I think this has the highest total of a game this year. And the other two games that have been over 53 were Chiefs Cardinals. Wasn't a contentious game, but the Chiefs dropped 40. And then Buffalo Miami, which that game was also really interesting. So that was that was a really weird game. So that's the one that the Bills ran like 90 plays but didn't end up winning or whatever. But we've seen from these ones, I looked back at the ownership on DraftKings, just the whatever the biggest Millie Maker contest was, that unsurprisingly, quarterbacks very popular in those games. The first one, Kyler Murray, wasn't that popular, but Patrick Mahomes was, if I remember correctly. The wide receivers, very chalky in those games. Tight ends is kind of hit or miss. Kelsey was super popular one time, but then in the Miami one, none of the tight ends were on the radar. The interesting thing is the running backs this isn't surprising. When you think of a 54-point total game, running backs don't come to mind because that's not how teams put up a ton of points. But we have pass catching running backs in this game. So, and the running backs have not been, they've like peaked at 6%, any single running back in all four of those individual offenses. And we have pass catching running backs. So that's like one take on it. Obviously the deeper receivers are interesting, but like, I can't find like a strong logical argument that this game isn't supposed to be a good high scoring game. Like there's obviously loads of variance in any NFL setting. I think it was last year. It was Chiefs Cowboys had one of the highest totals. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't remember, but it just absolutely flopped. It was probably last year because it was in the midst of the Chiefs sucking era, which was just unbearable.
Yeah. But for the most part, this is not
the
Cowboys. This is not Mike McCarthy here. The Bills are going to be super aggressive. Their pass rate over expected almost 3 times as high as last year's Bills, which were a super aggressive pass heavy team. We were very excited about them. And now they've gone even more to the pass, like in a meaningful way. So I think it's just, I can see it failing. Any NFL game can fail, but I think it fails like that Miami game did, where they're just not efficient for whatever reason. Things aren't clicking for whatever reason. And there's still a ton of volume, though, that you're sweating out if you don't have pieces of this game. I kind of like the way you described it. If you're pivoting here, you pivot to Devin Singletary. You pivot. It's tougher for me to get to Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Jerick McKinnon. But I think Singletary, he projects like very low ownership, and that's a really interesting way to play this game, in my opinion. Only had 54% of the snaps last week, but that was clearly because they were blowing out the Steelers. He's been involved heavily in their 2 competitive games this year. He played 100% of snaps against the Chiefs in the playoff game last year. So I think he's pretty interesting. I wonder if he gets steamed a little bit because it's just such an obvious pivot.
Yeah, I don't think so. I checked, ownership projections around the industry almost as soon as, they came live on Monday or Tuesday. I've refreshed a few times throughout the week, and I'm still not seeing a lot. And that does jive with what we saw of the previous 2 supposed, super shootout type of spots. It's just, you don't think of the way this game shoots out as the running backs going off. And from the Chiefs side, it is a bit hard to get on board with. I actually don't know what Jerick McKinnon's price is. It can't be good. I mean, it's 4,700.
It's a really strong week at running back, and it's a really strong week with like punt play running backs and lower price guys. So I mean, it's a ton of opportunities. 4,700. Yeah, it's a ton of opportunity cost.
Yeah,
in terms
I
of,
think
like,
I can see
upside,
Singletary getting there. Yes, I think I can see Singletary getting there because the Chiefs have been berated by running backs through the air this year. They have given up 10 more, if you count giving up. It's almost kind of a good thing to give up targets to running backs if you're not doing it to receivers. Not the point. Point being, from a fantasy perspective, they have given up 10 more running back targets than any other team in the NFL and like 70 more running back yards. 70 more is a lot for us being through 5 weeks. They just get beat up by running backs through the air. And Singletary he's actually improving as a pass catcher in the sense of he was like DFL last year.
In the sense he's there.
Yeah, he is
he's
just
out there.
He's on the map. He's he's punching his time card. He's like middle of the road in yards per route run and yards after the catch. Last year, he was terrible in those metrics. We'll take it. And they're using him as if he's not terrible as well, which he's not. He's playing fine as a pass catcher, which you couldn't say about him last year. And he's getting still a lot of the snaps. Like you said last week, he left the field for garbage time. We're not really concerned about that. I think he's like one of the more interesting ways to, I think you probably even want to stack him with Josh Allen because you want him to, like, Josh Allen's a red zone back. That's not Devin Singletary's role. You want Devin Singletary to get like one of these real routes where he's uncovered and goes yard.
So the other way I think maybe this game fails is that, well, it doesn't like fail, but a lot of stacks and, just kind of game stacks and stuff, they aren't able to get the correct guys in there because the Chiefs are going to be so hard to figure out. So MVS, I think, is somewhat interesting. Kelsey's obviously a great play, but he's very expensive. Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, that's kind of a tough click. So, and we talked about the running back. So, I could see, it being very difficult to have the right Chiefs. It's very difficult to play this from the Chiefs side. So certainly if you have the stones to go there, more power to you. But, a part of me is thinking, can I go Singletary and Allen and then go elsewhere for another game stack? And maybe I don't even have a Chief. What are your thoughts on that? And any kind of first of all, what is the obvious way to play this? Is it just Allen, Diggs, Gabe Davis with MVS bring back? But that's a lot of salary.
Yeah, Gabe, once again, I mean, Gabe has been based on his target share and his production is still overpriced. We know that price, a points per dollar median projection, does not care about ceiling. Those two things are incongruous. When Gabe can go 170 and 2, you're not but I paid 6,500 for him this week. It's just not going to work. The math just isn't there. So I don't think Gabe will be the chalk building piece to play this game by. And it's also because I think DFS has sort of evolved to a space where we're just not completely box score chasing. We're probably opportunity chasing to a degree that this guy got 11 targets last week. He must be the wide receiver 1, but that's at least a step forward.
We're chasing different parts of the box score.
Yes, exactly. And Gabe's 5 targets weren't actually that much last week relative to the team's passing attempts. So I would guess that given all the running back value, there are just so many good cheap running backs, Allen, Diggs, and I think you can still get Kelsey in there pretty comfortably.
Yeah. So right. So it's a single stack. Is that going to be?
I think probably so. I mean,
single stack with Kelsey.
I mean, we know the field is still not double stacking at quite the rate they should be. The top 1% of lineups, as they pointed out on ETR, going into the year, still are comprised of more double stacks than the field is. That gap is closing. It's much better. Like everything, the field is getting better, unfortunately, at that. But they're still not double stacking enough. And Allen's one of the quarterbacks you can convince yourself, rightfully so, that he doesn't need to be double stacked. He throws 2 touchdowns to Diggs and runs into.
All right, let's talk about potential pivots off this game, other game environments you like. One that jumps out to me is the Buccaneers and the Steelers. I think this is a really nice game environment. The Buccaneers are super pass heavy. We all know they got their receivers back, and that's been a big part of why they've been so pass heavy over the last 2 weeks. Last week against the Falcons, they had the second highest pass rate over expected of the entire season. Only the Bills against the Steelers had a higher pass rate over expected. So they are really leaning into the pass. But the other component of this is because they're actually able to protect Brady recently, and that's been partially because they've faced pretty poor pass rushes, and they will again this week. So I think you're going to have Brady sitting back, being able to pick the defense apart, but Gabe Davis just showed you can beat this defense deep as well. And that makes me really interested in Mike Evans as a potential kind of low own. Now he's expensive on DraftKings at 7,000, but he's the type of low own piece that I think is really interesting in a week where there is some pretty good chalk. So getting off the board might be important if you do want to play some of these running backs that we'll get to in a bit here. But yeah, this game environment's pretty interesting. Leonard Fournette, very expensive at 7,400, but he's also a great play. Brady himself might be tough given that you're going up against Allen and Mahomes, but certainly his weapons.
Yeah, that's always the thing I'm thinking about for these like even mid-tier quarterbacks is that, and I mean that in like a kind way to Brady. He is a very good real life quarterback, but from a fantasy perspective, when he's not rushing at all, and his opponent doesn't look like they're going to push him that much in this game, it's difficult. The top scorers so far have been, I believe, Allen week 1, Lamar, Jared Goff pops in there, and then Patrick Mahomes, if I have it correctly. If anything, it is 4 of the 5 weeks have been obvious elite quarterbacks, and they've outscored the QB2 on that week by an average of like 7 points. The top quarterbacks, for the most part, have just boat raced everyone else. One of the top quarterbacks, at least on a weekly basis, has. I will say though, like Brady definitely has that 4 touchdown, 400-yard
He
potential,
does.
and then all you're sweating is like non-rushing touchdowns from the quarterbacks because that's what we want from Mahomes or Allen. It's just they can give us the same thing plus a rushing touchdown and 40 yards, especially Allen, obviously. So that's kind of the only thing you're sweating there. If obviously you get the ceiling outcome from Brady. Basically, the ceiling outcome from Brady is the exact same as Mahomes or Allen. He just doesn't do anything on the ground, I'm assuming. It's Tom Brady. But it's also very easy, unlike either of the quarterbacks in the other game, because obviously Diggs and Kelsey are the top options. But the number 2 for those teams could be anyone. Like, I think it's probably Gabe, but like could be McKenzie, could be Dawson Knox. Whereas
For sure.
I am going to be surprised if one of Chris Godwin or Mike Evans does not blow up and Brady goes for 400 yards. Like, it's just such an obvious spot. And last week, like, I know we're not talking about receivers. Last week, they used Godwin like half the snaps. I think it was Greg Allman said that he I don't know if he got this directly from the team, but it seemed pretty clear that they were trying to get him back up to speed, get him accustomed, is what he said, to playing a time again. But they also didn't do that the week before, which is a bit strange. But to be fair, they were the box score looked close for their game versus Atlanta. It really actually wasn't, and it looks like they sat him for most of the second half. That the only issue is that could happen again this week.
Yeah.
So I think to me, like, if you're playing Godwin, you almost have to run it back because we know that there's a seems like a pretty reasonable risk that he actually gets benched in a way, essentially rested. Whereas Evans, they didn't rest him. They have no reason to. He's fine. So I actually do like Evans a lot in this matchup. And per usual, I like Chris Godwin too, but DFS players absolutely love Chris Godwin.
They love him.
Like, anytime Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are on the same slate, DFS players will never choose Mike Evans, even though like he consistently outscores Chris Godwin, who's also great. But like, play the ownership game a little bit, please, or don't. Just let me keep playing Mike Evans.
No, I'm with you. I want to play Evans this week, so please play Godwin. But running it back here, and we should just talk about receivers here. We only have about 7 more minutes till we're going to do some start sit. But Deonte Johnson, I think, makes it very easy to run it back. He's only 5,700. That's a great price for his role, his ability to earn targets. And the Steelers are not the Falcons. The Steelers are not going to like do everything they can to stop the game from being fun and shooting out. They're actually okay to pass the ball if the Bucs are pushing them, and I think the Bucs will be pushing them. So we're going to get some passing volume on the other side. I think we're going to get some deep shots potentially for George Pickens. I think he's another nice bring back option at 4,600 on DraftKings. Chase Claypool, not as interesting, 4,500. I'd want more of a salary discount, and I think these other guys aren't going to be super popular anyway, so probably not going there. But 2 really good bring back options, which makes it interesting. And maybe for minis, like if you get low owned Pickens with low owned Evans or low owned Johnson with low owned Evans, I mean, that's a really nice mini correlation to me. That low owned stuff is going to be important if you want to go to the chalk game or you want to go to the chalk running backs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only other quarterback I have like really on the radar for me is Lamar Jackson. And it's like nothing to do. I think I wrote this about George Kittle too. Like, sometimes the best argument I can come up with, and I think it's a strong argument, is that like play the extremely talented players when they're not going to be popular. Like, this is not nearly as exciting of a game as a lot of games. In fact, the 45.5 total is on par with Minnesota, Miami, New York Jets, Green Bay. It's just above San Francisco, Atlanta. But Lamar has triple-double potential. I mean, he has 50 points as a quarterback in his range of outcomes. He came close in week 2. He's the only quarterback this year with 2 games over 40 points. And he crushed that once with 48. So I think, not the most exciting game. This isn't a place where Lamar Jackson projects extremely well because we have Buffalo, Kansas City. Of course, he's not going to project as well as those guys, but he's Lamar Jackson. He's probably going to be like 5% on.
Tyler Lockett looks like he's going to be massive chalk this week. Do you think there's any chance Johnson gets steamed as kind of he's very similar salary, only $100 more on DraftKings? Do you think
Deonte?
people are pivoting off that? Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, we saw
Okay.
the field really jammed Lockett last week, and I'm glad for them. I'm glad they got 30 points. Yeah, it's just he continues to be successful, be popular, and not get priced up enough. He's like 19th or 7th. I think he's 17th in weighted opportunity rating, tied dead even with DK Metcalf because he's got a few, like 3 fewer targets, but nearly like a few more air yards. So the same, two sides of the same coin.
So Rondale Moore also looking very chalky. He had a really nice role last week, and he's in a very nice game environment. I don't really want to be playing Kyler Murray, but I mean, if you really want to get off the board, they're actually in a great game environment. But Moore looks like he'll be popular. He's only 4,200 on DraftKings. Are there any other cheap wide receiver pivots off of that chalk for you?
Yeah, the cheap options aren't great. Like Alec Pierce has been popping up for some good games recently. And the thing, unlike Rondale Moore, is like Rondale Moore probably attains his ceiling in like a realistic sense by getting 10 catches. They lose this game and he gets a ton of catches, but like he needs a ton of volume to get there. And they have a player on that team already getting a lot of volume. Whereas Alec Pierce at least has the profile of a dude who can just break it all in like 2 plays.
He does, yeah.
I hate playing Matt Ryan receivers because Matt Ryan's garbage. But like,
Yeah.
I also don't want to play Cardinals receivers. Like that's like, it's great that Marquise Brown gets 18 targets, but like the second guy on that team, I probably won't play a ton of Rondale Moore.
I like that game environment. I think it has a high ceiling, but like it also is not a game environment I'm afraid to fade if it gets really popular, or if there's a piece who's really popular, because like Cliff Kingsbury went super run heavy against the Eagles. He had a potential shootout lined up with the Eagles at home with a franchise quarterback on his team and was like, no, not doing that. We're running the ball. So yes, they're in a great matchup, but they are playing Seattle. Seattle loves to run the ball too. Like these two guys, they could be too conservative. This game could actually, I think it probably is fun and high scoring, but there are paths to failure for this game, like in a way where I don't really see for the Bills Chiefs.
Yes.
Any other notes on receiver? Any guys you like jumping out?
I like digging deep in the Buffalo Kansas City game because I especially if you're playing small field, like you probably don't have to. It's not mandatory to get off of this game. I think if you're playing the Millie, like that's probably where I'm firing more of my Brady lineups. Because if this game does just score 50 points, 1 or 2 of them are rushing touchdowns, it's expensive to stack this game. It still looks like a good game stack, but it is expensive. Juju at 5,200. I couldn't get this stat in on the show on the show on Thursday, the preview show. Of all the receivers and tight ends this team has, he does lead them in target share and air yard share against zone coverage. Who do you think plays like top 5 zone rate in the NFL?
Oh no.
Buffalo, which is weird. Buffalo's been a man team like for the past few years, but I'm guessing it's because they don't have Tre'Davious White who can, man up with anyone. Right. That they're like top 5 in zone coverage rate. Like these are the types of players that, like we saw with Gabe Davis, I don't want to call them ancillary, right? But just not the obvious ones. Just not the obvious ones. You can call him
ancillary.
Yeah, I can call. Well, are you saying I can call Gabe or Juju?
Juju.
Gabe sometimes is ancillary. Sometimes
Gabe is not ancillary. Gabe is secondary.
Yeah. Good secondary versus Juju, very ancillary. Mecole Hardman, super cheap, 4K pivot off of. I
think he's interesting.
Moore.
I think you get a big play with and that's at that price tag that'll be fine.
These are the types of dudes you want to like, dudes who can instantly speed up a game. Like you want this game to be like, oh, this drive was 45 seconds. The next drive, Chiefs long run, long pass. It was 2 minutes. Like those are the types of players you want. Not that like, obviously Travis Kelce, even with like a perfectly fine play as well. But these are the types of dudes that when they hit, they supercharge your stack.
Completely agree. All right, let's go ahead and get to the start sit questions here. Bench 1, Jalen Waddle, Miles Sanders, or Christian Kirk?
Kirk.
Yeah, I'm with you on Kirk. All right. Should I trade London for Travis Etienne?
Nope.
No, you should not. It doesn't matter who you have. I think that's pretty easy. Flex MVS or risk waiting for Keenan on Monday. Have Mike Boone as a Keenan contingency.
I think if you don't know by Sunday at kickoff, I'd just take MVS.
I think I would too. We've seen Keenan kind of do this to us. Maybe I'm scarred from when Remember, he's like, I'm playing every snap, and then he like played way less than every snap. Yeah. So I think it's not a bad contingency. So if you really do want to get Keenan in there, I don't think it's bad to go Keenan and then you have Mike Boone, but I think I do lean MVS.
It helps so much for this to be a great game. If the Chiefs were playing, the Texans or whatever, sure, maybe you're trying to sweat Keenan out, but this looks like the nuts, obviously.
Should I start Walker or Eno? Man, lucky you. You just don't have anyone else doing waivers on your league? I guess Walker was probably someone you drafted.
Yeah. I had this question when I was writing up who I think would be, the chalky running backs. I kept Stevenson in there as one of the chalky backs and was like, where's the field going to go between Walker and Eno? The answer is both. They'll both get pretty popular. But I do think Eno being at 4,800 made me think like that's where the field will go. I think
you almost feel a little comfier too because you don't have to worry about the pass game stuff.
That's what I was thinking too. It does help that the Seahawks have been a very balanced team, like a 1% pass rate over expected, doing about what you expect from any average team. And they've been good at running the football, and you're only losing passing game work. There is no other running back. They're favorites in this game by 2.5. That's also nice. But to me, like, he's not getting passing work. We saw DJ Dallas play almost all, like, he played a ton of third downs. Every single one of his snaps, except for like one, was a passing down snap as well. So it's clear that they want a third down back and they want Walker. Whereas, like, I think he gets most of
I do too.
snaps. So
I do too.
It's a better environment for Walker.
There's definitely paths to failure for Eno, though. Like, I don't think you have to necessarily eat that chalk because they could just play a lot of Keontae Ingram. Didn't they sign like Tyson Williams or something? Like, they like having a committee, I think. So
even if not, there's paths to him failing because we've seen James Conner fail this year when he was actually playing a pretty solid role. This team sucks. Their running backs can fail.
Great point. But okay, we've never answered the question. Who are you starting?
Sorry, I tried to answer. Eno, because at the end of the day, we play guys who probably have 3 down rolls. Like, that is such a big, it's not a tiebreaker, it's sort of the thing.
I think I'm playing Walker.
Really?
It's bet on talent. Yeah. And like, I know the Seahawks are going to pound the rock here at some point. So I'm not actually that worried about, I think Eno probably has the bigger ceiling, but Walker's going to he's going to have like 80 yards and he's probably scoring a touchdown.
Okay. He's close for
me.
Right. I'm not, I don't think there's like a hard wrong choice here. It's close.
Start Keenan if healthy. This dude's hammy.
This dude's hammy. What if hammy was like an adjective? He's like, this is a real hammy guy.
I think you start Keenan. If you've gotten a Monday, you've got your contingency lined up or whatever, and I think you just start him. Looking for a reason to sit Najee this week. Well, that reason is watching Najee Harris. Go back and check out the Bills game. Can I start Pollard, Rondale Moore, or even Rashad White? You can start Rondale Moore. You can start Rondale Moore over Harris. I don't think you can start the other two, even though I'd love to tell you yes.
Same. Totally agree.
Quarterback this week: Winston, Lawrence, or Daniel Jones?
Danny Dimes.
I think I'm Lawrence. I think Lawrence has a chance to be okay this week.
How wonderful.
I know. Well, hey, it's not my fault. It's this guy's fault. Get better quarterbacks. You're making this is too gross.
Come on, everyone knew this is the year to draft the expensive quarterbacks.
All right, should I trade Barkley and Pierce for CMC and JT?
Yeah.
Yes, you should. You should do that. I know it feels like, oh God, but you have to do that, right?
I agree. Like, this is one where, like, JT, this injury lingers for a little bit and the offense is bad. And CMC, the offense sucks with PJ Walker or whatever. And you're like, how could I have done this? But you trust the process and you take who, like, in my rest of season rankings are, the 6th and 9th best players. Barkley is like the 3rd.
Yeah.
But like Pierce, he's just not quite there yet. You're getting 2 first round. To me, if we were drafted today, they're still first round picks. They're not the one.
Pierce is still on the Texans. He's still on the Texans. I think you have to do this. Completely agree. Barkley's the best player in the deal, but CMC leads all running backs in snap share, leads all running backs in target share. He's actually got quite a bit of a higher target share than Barkley this year, 23% to 19%. I don't think the Panthers offense is going to get any better, but
dude, it's not.
It can't get worse, right?
You think that now. PJ,
yeah,
God bless his soul. I love PJ Walker. He was so cool in the
I
XFL.
know.
I was jamming him every week until it got shut down. But his NFL stats are among the worst you'll find.
They're terrible. They're actually the worst. He has the worst efficiency of any quarterback over the last like two or 3 years, however long he's been in the league.
Yeah,
he's been awful. Yeah, but so now we're talking you out of the trade. I think the thing is, yes, there's a gap between Barkley to CMC, but there's a bigger, like I think, still pretty gigantic gap between JT and Dameon Pierce. You're selling high. You're selling high in a big way on Dameon Pierce. All right, start Kareem Hunt or Travis Etienne this week.
Kareem
Hunt. Quarterback this week: Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence, or Jameis Winston. I think we answer this one. All right. These are types of questions we won't be answering. 3 to 5 wide receivers. You think we'll go?
Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson.
Wow. Okay. I guess we are answering that. What happened there? Okay. Hi. Should I trade Mike Williams and AJ Dillon for Dameon Pierce? I have Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, Chris Godwin at wide receiver. All right. What are you doing?
I think I'm holding on to Mike Williams and AJ Dillon. Yeah, I think I am. There's still a ton of contingent value and some like deep RB3-ish kind of value for AJ Dillon and Mike Williams. Even when Keenan Allen comes back, I still think is like a strong wide receiver 2 play because the Chargers are still an elite passing team. I think that's where I'm at.
I think I'm with you. It's not a bad.
Not at all.
I don't think it's crazy.
If you love Dameon Pierce, go ahead and let it rip. Pierce is playing well. He's running like an elite running back, and they're giving him a decent chunk of the passing game work. He isn't a 3-down back, but he's 2.5.
Yeah, I still think you're buying high on on Dameon Pierce, and it's the Texans, man. Like they're not going to be in a lot of games where they're able to establish. So, I think I'm sitting tight. All right, start 2 full PPR: Najee Harris, Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, Melvin Gordon. Jeff Wilson for sure, right?
Yep, he was the first one. Think I am Raheem over Melvin Gordon because we saw like Mike Boone as a meaningful part of the committee. I mean, snaps wise, it was like almost a 50-50, but also like touches matter too. Like snaps aren't the end all be all, but it was like I think 15-7 in terms of carries, and they split targets 3-3 if I remember correctly. Like it's a clear Melvin Gordon number 1 back, but he's not quite the slam dunk I thought he'd be.
And he's on the Broncos, who are just so bad. So are you Mostert over Harris?
Yeah, for sure, dude. Harris sucks. Don't play him.
I think I'm with you. Yeah, I will mention that, but there was a knee issue, but he's back at practice. So
correct. He missed Wednesday's practice, but he returned on Thursday. Definitely, like, sort of keep an ear to the ground in case we get any sort of reports of like, well, maybe we'll see more Chase Evans this week. But given how little they've used him, I'm thinking unless the knee's falling off, maybe it is, but I'm thinking unless the knee's falling off, it's Mostert's backfield.
I agree. Any players you expect to go off this week? Normally, I would pull this up.
Josh Allen looks like he's in a good spot, so I'd consider playing him.
All right, Kyle, you're crushing these. All right, Mixon or Stevenson? Stevenson.
Let's do it.
Stevenson's in such a good spot. I think he gets in the end zone. I'm going Stevenson. All right, pick 1 flex: Kirk, Stevenson, Olave, Mostert.
Stevenson.
I think it's Stevenson. The guy I'd be considering is Olave.
Me too.
Other than him, but I think I'm Stevenson. All right, start Dawson Knox versus the Chiefs or Gerald Everett versus the Broncos. I think it's Knox, right?
Me too. He's one of the few pivots I wrote up for at tight end. Like his role honestly isn't great. He was doing more pass blocking than we're used to, but like he plays in the game of the century.
Yes. Yeah. Get pieces.
And he's still
of this
playing
game.
like 80% of the snaps, just blocking on 20% of those snaps or whatever. But like he's on the field for a bulk of the snaps for the league's best offense against the league's best second best offense. Like you're playing him.
Yeah. I know like the DFS talk, if you're just here for the start sits, is maybe like not your favorite part of the show, but the fact that the DFS game that everyone's trying to get pieces of and really sees as having this massive ceiling, it's the Chiefs Bills. I think you got to break ties. DFS can get quite helpful in your start sit stuff because you got to break ties towards those game environments. That's what kind of the crowd is helping us do.
Yeah.
With DFS. So, and in contrast to the Bills Chiefs, where DFS people aren't talking about the Chargers Broncos because it's not on the main slate, but
they wouldn't be talking about it either way.
They wouldn't be talking about it anyway. Exactly. It's not a good game environment. So, we thought it was going to be a good game environment, but doesn't look like it's going to be. So yeah, I think I'm next. James Robinson, AJ Dillon, or Juju at the flex and half PPR.
Definitely not AJ Dillon. To me, this looks like, I guess, like, I don't want to proclaim my knowledge too much. I believe the Colts are 2-point favorites. They're at home, so they have a home field advantage. But like, Colts are trash. I am shocked they're favored in this game. This looks to me like a James Robinson game, which it was, I believe, the last time they faced the Jags, or Jags faced the Colts. On the other hand,
it's Juju, man, and I don't like Juju at all. But you gotta play Juju. Game of the century. We just talked break ties towards the Chiefs, and
I know. I was setting up to heel turn for Juju, but like it's a very weak heel turn. Juju is not particularly good, but I do think there's an intuitive level of the reason he's leading the team in targets against zone is at least relative to his share against man. Like, I've watched the dude play. He's Adam Thielen. He ain't beating man anymore, but he can still probably find soft spots in the zone.
He's Cole Beasley.
Yeah. Cole Beasley might be a little more twitchy at this point in his career.
Oh God, he's retired. Yeah, I think
so is Juju.
And I love bashing on Juju. Maybe not quite as much as Kyle, but I do enjoy it. I think
it's a coping mechanism though, because I'm going to play a lot of them this week.
Yeah, James Robinson or AJ Dillon.
James Robinson answered that one last time.
Okay, Ayuk or Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson.
I think it's Garrett Wilson too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not like the 49ers game environment. I have both Jags running backs. Who do I start? You said Robinson. I'll say ETN because I think he's the better back, and I don't know how this game script's going to go. And so I just want the guy who has like a little bit more of a receiving role, and I think is better.
Yeah, if I was being realistic about what Vegas is telling us, that the Jags are literally underdogs in this game. That is a very obvious Travis Etienne script. Like, I'm just not buying that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it seems pretty close to coin flip. Vikings or Cincinnati D. Help a brother out. This is for the chat, but we're going to go ahead and answer it too.
Let me just see who one of these teams plays Skylar Thompson.
Yeah,
you
got to go Vikings D. Okay, Thielen or Dobbs to the chat. We still got you.
We're stealing the chat.
Stealing questions from the chat. Sorry.
Thielen.
I think it's Dobbs. He's probably
okay. You scared me a little bit with all of the Dobbs FUD on the show.
Well, yeah, I brought up a lot of stats that were saying like Dobbs doesn't really. I think it's 17% target rate on non-screens this year, so he's not actually earning targets downfield at a great rate. But like,
which should be what he does too.
It should be what he does. That's not necessarily like a terrible situation to be Dobbs, though. Like, it's not good for the Packers. It's bad for Aaron Rodgers, but if he's the guy that's getting the screens, then it's probably okay. I'll take it over Thielen. Gabe or Kirk? Gabe,
buddy.
Come on, man. Do not sit Gabe, guys. Do not sit Gabe Davis.
Hey,
I'm not saying he's guaranteed to go up,
hey.
But his ceiling, man, it's big.
You little stinkers, you better not sit Gabe.
Gino or A-Raj? Have not seen that before. A-Raj.
I like it. A-Rod obviously sounds much better, and he doesn't deserve a good nickname right now.
Or should be is it A-Rog?
A-Rog.
I kind of like A-Rog.
Either one of those is better than A-Rog because he hasn't earned that, and he's got to earn that one back. Am I going to say Gino?
It's Gino. It's Gino. He's playing the Cardinals. They're terrible. Michael Carter or Boone as running back too?
I think Carter.
I think it's Boone.
Okay, fine.
He's not getting 2 1-yard touchdowns this week.
Fair.
Russ Wilson or Christian Kirk? Lazy Sunday is actually with a clean start sit.
Kirk Cousins.
My God.
Dude, Russell Wilson.
You're right. No. I'm just taking stock of the world that we live in. I'm not arguing.
I'm taking
Russ
stock
or Trevor Lawrence
teams.
Yeah, tell me about
Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, man. That's gonna be like one of those few things that I brick so incredibly hard.
I bricked it real hard. I was like, the Broncos, man, underpriced. No, they weren't. They were overpriced by a lot.
God, it makes me sick.
Dobbs, Alec Pierce, Rondale, or McKenzie?
Rondale. I kind of want to go McKenzie here.
Hey, man, let's do it. Let's go McKenzie. Let's get pieces of this game environment. Should I trade Brandon Cooks, Deonte, and Olave for Devonte?
I mean, assuming you have like any other life.
No. There's no way. There's no way this doesn't leave you really thin at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Right?
You would have had to have gone like 0 RB insane.
Well, look, I mean, Cooks was probably what your 4th or 5th round pick.
I would
Probably
say
5th round pick. Deonte's probably a 4th round pick.
Yeah, they have to be 4-5. I don't know in what
Yeah.
order, but
Yeah. And then Olave, that's like a 9th or 10th rounder. So
yeah, probably not. Yep.
I don't think you do it.
Nope.
I get the temptation. I would wait until after this week too, because I think Olave could have a really strong game, and I think Deonte could have a really strong game, and Devonte's coming off a strong game, so I bet the price goes down.
And Devonte's
Cooks
on bye this week and is
right.
maybe suspended for a game after that. I don't know if we've got an update on that situation yet, but it's certainly possible at least.
Yeah, Cooks is definitely someone I'd be looking to move though. Juju, James Robinson, or AJ Dillon at flex. Oh.
I think coincidentally, I don't know if it's the same person, but it was Juju, by the way.
Start 3, Miles Sanders, Eno Benjamin, Devonte Smith. Now, it says start 3, so sure, yes.
Yeah.
Start 3. Those are the 3, right? I guess if pick one, just in case we've got a typo here or something.
I will rank them Miles Sanders, Devonte, and Eno. So you've got all the information.
They're ranked.
You need.
They're ranked. Start 3. Okay, should I add Josh Reynolds and drop Hunter Renfrow?
Probably not, but I don't care.
No, don't do that.
Hunter Renfro's bad though, to be clear. Hunter Renfrow, unsurprisingly, as soon as Darren Waller got healthy, he's not healthy anymore, but as soon as he got healthy, because he wasn't last year, and then they had Devonte Adams, who's an absolute unit, he disappeared. Who could have thought of such a thing? Yeah, what an easy fade.
James Conner practicing today? Is this a thing? I don't think so, right?
I don't know. He might be technically practicing, but he was ruled out like a day ago.
Yeah, we're getting Eno, so don't worry about that. In fact, it sounds like Conner he's not a lock for week 7. So
then he definitely isn't practicing today. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a limited participant practice, but he's already been ruled out. They're ramping him up for a week later. But Connor's definitely not practicing today then.
All right, this is the last one, and then we'll go to the DFS talk. Trade Adams for Jamar Chase and London.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I would do that too.
I mean, I've even been more Chase bear than you are.
Right.
But I'm not that bearish that I want to also not have Drake London on my team, who is really good as well.
Agreed. Okay, so we are going to do some more start sit in about 10 minutes, a little over 10 minutes here. We'll get back to it. But for now, let's talk about the rest of the DFS slate. Kyle, this is we definitely had some fill-in running backs before, but I don't recall a slate quite like this with as many really good and cheap options at running back. Ramondre Stevenson is a great play. He's only 6,000 on DraftKings. I think looks like he's going to be mega chalk. Eno Benjamin, 4,600. We talked about him. I'm not seeing him as super chalky here, but I don't know. Feels like people will go there for salary savings. And then, we're going to get Kenneth Walker. He's at 5,400 as well. You also have Breece Hall. There's a number. Am I forgetting someone? There's a lot of really good cheap running backs this week.
Mostert at 5,700 is he's dominating the backfield carries. They don't throw the running backs a ton, but that's still a pretty good option. Kareem Hunt's a little more deep divey, definitely not popular, but I don't hate him. Even the thing is you give up so much opportunity cost when you play 5,100 Tyler Algier over Eno Benjamin, but Algier rushed 13 times. And I think they used him on most of the passing downs too. I saw 60% on the passing downs.
He also had 3 red zone carries. And I think the other guys, Huntley and Avery, each had 1. Avery scored the touchdown from inside.
Thank God. 10. I'm glad. As someone who played some Algier, seeing Avery punch that bad boy in.
No, it was just delightful. But there was a concern heading into the game that Caleb Huntley was a clear goal line back because he got all the goal line work the week prior, and he's a big dude. Okay. But to see Algier get those 3 red zone carries, and one of which I believe was inside the 10, that makes me feel a lot better about there's not some clear-cut goal line role that he's locked out of. But at the same time, I don't feel like he has a big ceiling. I think he hits a ceiling. Maybe if he gets 105 yards and a touchdown, but even that feels a little thin. He seems maybe he's more likely to have 65 rushing yards and 35 receiving yards, right? And he gets to 100 total yards, but you don't get the bonus on DraftKings then. I don't think he's scoring multiple touchdowns, right? So that would be my concern there.
Yeah, that's the thing is you mentioned this earlier. I mentioned again, what are the odds his ceiling game looks anything similar to Kenneth Walker's ceiling game? I struggle to see that. Kenneth Walker is a favorite against a bad defense on all fronts. They're bad against passing and the run. They're a neutral script team, but they score points. So it's not like they're a team that runs the football a lot and they suck. So you're fine fading them. When they want to put up points, they've had no trouble doing so. And this doesn't look like a defense that can stop them. So like it's the perfect setup. It's balanced, but putting up points. As far as running backs go, obviously I just want every team to pass 80 times a game. But as far as running back production is concerned, it's perfect. You still get your volume while not being, succumbing to the bad efficiency of an offense that runs the ball too much. So, yeah, I probably, to me, I've looked at a lot of top players, like all of their ownership within their, typically 150 builds. And at least last year and the year before that, for the most part, we were seeing top players just go all in on the cheap punt running backs. Like the projectable volume is so easy. I do think that has probably come into question a little more recently because we do see a lot of teams straying away from like true RB1s. Like you said, like, dude, if Tyson Williams goes out, gets 7 carries and rushes, plunders a touchdown, wouldn't shock me. But I do think in general, the chalk at running back is going to predict fantasy success more than wide receiver or tight end, obviously more in defense. So I don't think I'd be getting to any Algier. I think I can almost talk myself into some Kareem Hunt because he does have like multi-touchdown.
That's a good one.
Especially on FanDuel, whereas like the 100-yard bonus is not existent on FanDuel. You just want him to punch in 2 scores, and he actually has more red zone touches than Nick Chubb this year. They're using him as a true red zone option, and on FanDuel, that's all that matters. So I don't hate that one as one of the pivots, and it really makes it easy on FanDuel.
I like that. I like that. That has a ceiling. I think the Browns rushing game has a really big ceiling in this game. The Patriots are terrible against the run. The Browns have been so efficient, and a lot of that's Nick Chubb, but Kareem Hunt's also really good too. And if he gets the touchdowns on FanDuel, you're sitting pretty there. So that's a great one. Ramondre Stevenson. Let's just talk about kind of how good of chalk he is, I guess, because he does seem kind of hard to like fully fade, but I guess I could see him being a little bit like Khalil Herbert from when they played the Giants, and he was very chalky that week. Like the reason I bring that up is because I think this is a game where the Browns and the Patriots are going to be really run heavy, both sides running the ball a ton. And that makes you feel confident that Ramondre Stevenson is going to get plenty of work. He's not going to have issues getting carries, but maybe he just isn't super efficient on the ground. He doesn't catch many balls. Maybe it's like 2 receptions or something, and he doesn't get in the end zone. And then all of a sudden, like he's just not that great of a play, and half the field has him. So if you're off of that, you're in a really nice situation.
So I just gotta refresh some ownership projections, and it does look like it's going to be more popular than almost anyone else. It's just like such a slam dunk spot. I do think, and Ramondre looks really popular too. And like you said, also another great spot. I think the Khalil Herbert comp is pretty good in the sense of like they are. I believe they're on the road. They are,
and Khalil Herbert's also good. It's not a talent thing.
Yeah, exactly. You're not saying like, oh, well, Herbert was a bad play because we don't think he was a good running back. We think both these guys are good, but he is a road dog running back who's not catching a ton of passes. He also hasn't been that efficient as a pass catcher this year. He's like middle of the road in yards per route run. He's not bad by any means, but it's not like you're banking on him getting 8 catches if this team falls in a negative game script. He's been held under 3 catches in all but 2 games this year. So I think that's the way he fails. Even if he gets a touchdown, he gets 80 yards a touchdown. 80 yards touchdown, 2 catches, 20 yards. It's like a good 20-point game, but 20-point game at 6K is fine. It's not slate breaking, and there will probably be a slate breaking running back out there somewhere. We just don't know who he is. So actually, like, I don't know. I talked about this last time. Like these like road dog running backs who aren't elite pass catchers, he should be, but he's not being used like that. Isn't a terrible fade, and it's especially this week an easier fade to make when we have a lot of good cheap running backs.
Agreed. So if someone's going to completely flip the slate on its head this week at running back, who would it be? And is there like an expensive? So let me just back up, because I think this whole week is going to be difficult for people because there's cheap running backs and there's an expensive game that we want to get to.
It builds itself.
It builds itself. So it's like normally, or not normally, but sometimes you have like a game that everyone wants to go to, partly because it saves salary. We think it's going to be a high scoring shootout, but it's also a salary saving game, like maybe, the Geno Smith Cardinals or something. But, and in that case, you might be able to go, you kind of flip that. You avoid that game, and you go to a more expensive game and you find some cheap running back punts. But this game is like, it's harder to flip the build at running back where you're playing expensive running backs when everyone else is playing cheap running backs, because it also means fading the Bills Chiefs game, right?
Yeah, I mean that's almost necessarily what it is. You can probably still get one expensive running back in and build a decent, especially Mahomes stack. Mahomes a little bit cheaper, and he's got some sort of ambiguity where you can go to these cheap Mecole. If you're a sick pup, you go Mecole Hardman Juju. It's pretty cheap.
You are real sick. You can't
and there's
both. My God.
Rondale Moore is a good value receiver. Even Isaiah McKenzie or something like that. You can play a lot of the cheap guys in that KC game, especially. But I do think in like cash, you're not getting any cheap guys. And typically the cash lineups do mirror general ownership, not what we're going to see, but general ownership. We talked about it. Nick Chubb is in just the spot of all spots. He's a favorite against New England running defense that hasn't been good. He's been elite so far. And surprisingly, we have only seen one game in which the Browns either way have had a deficit of more than 3 points. That was Pittsburgh. They beat him by 12. It was his season high in rushing attempts, unsurprisingly. When if they actually do go out and outperform the spread just by a little bit, just by, 7 points, one extra touchdown, we could get 25 plus carries for him, which we haven't seen yet. So it's a really good spot. The only concern is that he's not getting all of the work in the red zone. He's not even getting the majority of the work in the red zone. And he's still a committee back and he doesn't catch passes. But that's why he's going to be less than 5% owned. Also, the dynamics of construction also play a part in that.
Yeah, for sure. No, but that's a good one. If you can figure out a way to get there, I really like that play. He was the cover boy of the walkthrough last week, but he probably would have been the cover boy of the walkthrough this week if I hadn't kind of already used him. So anybody else that jumps out to you? Let's actually, unless there is someone you want to mention, let's talk about tight end quickly here in the last couple of minutes before we do some more start sit questions. I don't know, I guess is what Tyler Higbee chalk week? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, probably. I mean, he literally, Tyler Higbee in the year of our Lord 2022 leads all tight ends in targets. He's the number 2 receiver for Matthew Stafford.
He is. Zach Ertz will be another popular play. Mark Andrews, it looks like maybe be somewhat popular, but he's very expensive, so he's going to be tough to fit in general. And I'm sure people want to go to Kelsey if they can find a way to do it. Are there any punt tight ends that jump out to you at all?
Yeah, I mean,
I do love punting tight end.
Yeah. Dawson Knox is so cheap that he doesn't need the full role to get there. I do think it's a tough week to punt tight end.
What about Hunter Henry?
I saw Hunter Henry. He was one I thought about. I do think this just looks like a good in the sense of they'll both do it well, a runoff from both of these teams. And Jacoby Myers is straight alphaing right now. He is truly
he really is.
Legit. He is one of only, sorry to sidetrack us, he's one of only 5 players in the NFL to have a target share over 30% and an air yard share over 35%. He's like
on non-screen routes. I use this on a previous show. I'll use it again. On non-screen routes, he leads the NFL in target share.
So yeah, he's so good. So this isn't quite a pun, but it's cheap though, especially for who it is. On FanDuel, George Kittle is 5,700. Okay. He is so cheap. And I don't care about no stat you could throw at me could dissuade me from the fact that George Kittle is really good at football and his ceiling games are incredible. His ceiling games have been generally a little bit better on DraftKings. He goes for a ton of yards on a ton of catches, but it doesn't matter. 180 yards and a touchdown on 10 catches is also good on FanDuel. And he faces a defense that's, downright terrible. They're terrible against the run and the pass, and we know that San Francisco is going to want to beat them up specifically through the air. But George Kittle's role hasn't changed. He's played on 90% of the snaps since coming back. He's run around on 80% of Jimmy Garoppolo's dropbacks. He is playing the every down tight end role. He just hasn't blown up yet. And the offense doesn't look great. Maybe his chances of blowing up are less than they used to be when it was humming in 2020 or whatever. But I do not see a world in which he doesn't have the ceiling he had then on a per game basis.
I'm with you. What about let's see, Cameron Brate or Irv Smith, that's probably the last 2 punts.
I thought about bringing up Cam Brate. He's just not good. That's all I've got.
I'm also a little bit worried about Cade Otton maybe still getting routes. So
Cade Otton looked a little good.
He looked a little good. So that I don't like just projecting Cam Brate to run all the routes again because Cade Otton did look good and Cam Brate doesn't usually look good. All right, we're back to the start sits. I have Keenan Allen. Do you think he'll play? Should I pick up Josh Palmer in case he doesn't play?
Problem is Josh Palmer also doesn't look great. Like he just hasn't been
He's
going
not
out.
doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, it's like he's a backup third receiver type of guy. So when the role increases, it increases in routes, but it's not doing much for his targets because he's not Keenan Allen. He doesn't have the ability to earn targets like Keenan Allen does. So, I mean, yes, he is probably the desperation play outside of Mike Boone. Mike Boone would be a better desperation play if he's available. I do think Keenan plays, but I'd put it like 65-35 that he plays. It's
Yeah.
not a lock. It's far from a lock.
Yeah, I think if you have any kind of option that feels okay, I probably like we answered a question earlier that MVS. I think we'd start MVS. So something in that range, I feel like just go ahead and lock it in if we don't know for sure he's playing, as Kyle said earlier. All right. Miles Sanders, Ramondre Stevenson, Kenneth Walker, pick 2. Ramondre all day.
Yeah.
And then it's Walker or Sanders. Where are you at?
I think it's still Sanders.
I think it's Walker.
Okay. I think it's Sanders. I think we want to bet on the Eagles when we get the chance to.
That's fair. That's fair. I think we want to bet on maybe the best quarterback in the league. Just kidding. All right. Couldn't even keep a straight face to get that out. All right. High ceiling play this week. Dubs or Kirk? He's down. He needs a ceiling.
Kirk
for sure. Naheem Hines or Rachaad White?
Ooh, Hines is doing okay through concussion protocol, right?
I believe so. And what's Taylor's deal? We're gonna get Taylor?
I'm pretty sure we're getting Taylor. He's like getting back-to-back limiteds this week already.
I think if we get Taylor, you go White.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they could. I like the game environment because I think the Steelers will push back a little bit, but it's possible that they just completely boat race the Steelers. In which case, you could see White in garbage time. Jacoby Myers or Cris Olave? That's a good one.
This is a really good one. I think it's Jacoby Myers.
Man,
dude, Myers is like, I said it. He's like not distant from Devonte Adams. Like,
I think it's Olave for the ceiling of him continuing to dominate targets with this super high ADOT. Like he could get there on a few plays. Like who's scoring 2 touchdowns, right? It's Olave.
Myers is, I'm sure, never scored 2 touchdowns in his life. In his whole life. We'd have to check his college scores, but yeah. I feel like this is sarcastic, but we'll take it. Didn't realize people stream fantasy analysis. What are you been on? Or you're probably making fun of us. London or Pitts? London
or Pittman. I'm sorry.
Yeah. London. Yeah. Look, they're using Kyle Pitts as this decoy garbage collector kind of guy, and it's perfect for Drake London.
What do you think about this? Did the NFL purposely give Amazon bad games as a direct result of Prime shipping taking longer than 2 days?
I had a similar tweet in which Roger Goodell had a package delivered to the wrong apartment. He lived in 303 and someone gave it to 330, and he's been holding a vicious grudge ever since.
It's a vicious grudge. It actually dates back pre-Amazon Prime days. I'm not sure.
And it dates back to obviously when Roger Goodell lived in an apartment instead of, I assume, a 40,000 square foot.
It's almost like not having a full week of practice is not good for an NFL game. I don't know.
Also, having bad teams also seems to play some sort of role in it.
Najee Harris or Tevin Coleman. This is where we're at. This has got to be a bit.
Tevin Coleman got like 8 carries. Tevin Coleman, I think, got 8 carries and a touchdown last week, but TDP looks like he's back. So I don't think this is a bit because Tevin Coleman scored some fantasy points last week and Najee Harris hasn't scored fantasy points since late last year. But it's Najee Harris, to be clear.
Guys, but it is Harris. Okay. Would you trade Ramondre and Lockett for Mixon and Waddle? This is a good one.
Ooh.
Man, that's a really good one.
I think I
went Mixon and Waddle.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting such a good buy low on like 2 really talented, 1.5 really talented players.
He leads all running backs in expected points per game. And I think I do not have like any Mixon in
neither.
best ball season long. I have a gigantic faith position on Mixon this year, so like I would love for this to continue. But like this is a bad bet to continue in terms of him being this inefficient on a massive workload. He's getting targeted on early downs. He will eventually score some touchdowns. He can rip off long plays. Like he's kind of, in that Miles Sanders type of mold where he does rip off long plays, So I think it's a really good buy low opportunity. Yeah, on both players.
On both players too, because Waddle's target share has been really getting crushed in the past 3 weeks. But they've had 3 different quarterbacks play snaps. They haven't had a game where they didn't play less than 2 quarterbacks. Yeah, they played at least 2 in every game for the past 3 weeks. He's got the groin injury, and he got his first full practice on a Wednesday since like last month. So
and Tua's gonna be back eventually, right? And even if they have Teddy, I mean, worst case scenario, they lost Teddy last week. I think Waddle could have been fine with him.
Yeah, and on the other side, Damian Harris is gonna be back at some point, and they want to use
exactly.
Harris, so.
Yeah, that's actually really. It feels like that's a super close trade, but the more you think about it, you're like, oh my god, you definitely want the Mixon Waddle side.
Yeah,
Zay Jones worth keeping.
Definitely.
Otherwise, on bench.
He's a better flex option than you're going to find on the wire most weeks. Like outside of like the good like pick up Benjamin type of weeks, he's a good like wide receiver 3 relative to picking up some
that's probably right. I might be tempted if I was strong at wide receiver to churn him out for a contingent piece. I don't think he's like going to be that helpful in any given week. So it kind of depends what running backs are out there for me. Corey Davis, Jerry Jeudy, Alec Pierce, pick 2.
I think it's Corey Davis for sure, almost, right? Like he has clearly been the number 1 receiver under Zach Wilson. Jerry Jeudy and that offense are just so bad. But so is Alec
still
Pierce.
Jeudy over Pierce, right? Right?
Yeah, I think. I think.
Yeah.
I don't feel confident, but I guess I'll say
I think
yes.
it is, but man, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think it's still Jeudy.
Sure.
Ugh. Will Zappy start or Jones? It's Zappy, right?
Yeah, Zappy. I don't know if that's confirmed.
But
yeah, I don't think it's confirmed, but like it's confirmed in the way Bill Belichick is like, yeah, Mac Jones might play this week. That's the biggest no I've ever seen.
Do you think Pete Carroll will play the hokey doke and not give Walker 15 carries this week?
No.
I don't think so either. I would talk myself into this narrative if Walker was going to be like mega chalk in DFS, but I don't.
He is going to be popular. Yeah, I think he'll be one of the 4 most popular running backs. Just the fact that we got Eno knocks him down a peg.
Exactly.
But the thing is, they don't it's DJ Dallas, like a special teamer type of player, and a player who they only used on passing downs last week. Only, I think he saw like 11 snaps, and 10 of them were routes or pass blocking snaps. If they had even like some sort of 7th round pick they attacked onto the roster last year,
right?
But they have no one.
No, I completely agree.
Travis Homer is back, but he's still in IR, I think, with the I don't remember what.
Yeah, even if they had remember Jordan Wilkins, if they had a guy like that.
They had both. Did they have both Scarborough at some point?
Yeah, exactly. So they don't really seem to have that guy.
No, they don't. I can check, but they don't.
If they had Deion Jackson, you know what I mean? He would get work. So, but yeah, they don't seem to. And Walker's really good 2nd round pick. I think he does get the work. I understand your concern, though. Pete Carroll saying Drew Lock was nipping at Geno Smith's heels.
Come on, my God.
Personnel decisions, a little questionable at times. I traded Hunt and Rondale Moore for David Montgomery and Jacoby Myers. Monty's not working out, but did I win or lose this trade? We don't do did I win or lose this trade. I've read the whole question, didn't realize it was a did I win or lose this trade.
I could tell. In 15 weeks, you can actually just add up who scored more or less fantasy points, and that's how you can tell.
Yeah, then you'll know who won or lost. Flex position, PPR, Jeff Wilson, James Robinson, Devonte Smith.
Jeff Wilson.
Man, I want to say Smith, but I think it is Wilson.
It's just a really good spot for them to just get in. It's like the 28th ranked running defense in EPA per play. Get in, rush Jeff Wilson 20 times, get out with a 21-7 win.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Mark Andrews and Hill. Tyreek Hill, I assume. Okay. Should I trade Mark Andrews for Tyreek Hill and Zeke? It's a big no for me.
That's a no for me because you have 2 obvious wide receiver ones, like both in what they do and in fantasy production, and then a guy who is only going to get into your lineup to score you 3 points. He is a net negative for your team.
Right. And one of those wide receiver ones has tight end eligibility and is the better play. And I'd rather just have them straight. I'd rather have Mark Andrews as a wide receiver than Tyreek Hill right now. Maybe that's crazy. I don't actually think it is. All right. Raheem Mostert, London, or McKenzie. in this flex spot.
London.
Agreed. Full PPR, need 2 players, Duvernay, Randall Cobb, or Zay Jones.
Get Cobb out of here. Get that corn cob
Get him
boy
out
out
of
of
here.
here.
Yeah, I agree. Duvernay's actually like a decent start. I mean, it's gross. It feels gross, but he could definitely hit a big player too. I'm throwing him in. All right, start 2, Garrett Wilson, Rondale Moore, Isaiah McKenzie.
The first 2, Rondale and Wilson.
Okay, we're going to go real quick here, guys, because we're almost done. Oh, we only have a few more left. Okay.
Rapid fire, we'll go.
Rapid fire. I mean, I'm going to answer Homer, dude. I will answer your question, and that'll be the last one. Which you got on right at 2 o'clock. Najee Harris or Tevin Coleman. Oh,
Najee.
We got this one. Okay. I think we are. Something's going on with the chat. I think. Anyway, last one. JT or Kenneth Walker.
JT, hold the faith.
JT, hold the faith. I agree. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back next Friday at 1 p.m. You can check us out then. Make sure to check out all of our written content on rotoworld.com. Check out the recap podcast that will be out late Sunday night, early Monday morning. I will be on with me. We'll be talking about all of the games. Everyone who covers the Rotoworld, covers the games for Rotoworld comes on and recaps the games. So this is a really helpful podcast. Check out, I was just on Matthew Berry's Fantasy Football Happy Hour. You can check that out. That'll be on YouTube later today. Kyle, anything?
DFS preview just dropped an hour ago. Check that out. A lot of the players we talked about are in that. A little more detailed stats for them. Check out the preview show. Dropped yesterday. There you go.
Yep. And my walkthrough is up on Rotoworld now, which is just kind of a general preview column. It's not DFS focused, so some start sit type questions should be helpful for answering that. Dive into the game environments in a pretty in-depth way. All right, you can check us out next Friday.